Some of you may remember a number of years ago that a band called Coldplay had a song called Fix You. Anybody remember that song? That song, Fix You? Some of you remember that song, right? Interesting song. The song was written by lead singer Chris Martin. He wrote it for his then wife, Gwyneth Paltrow. Now, some of you will know Gwyneth Paltrow. She's not his wife anymore. But she was then. And the reason why he wrote it for her is because she had just lost her father. Her father died, and he could see how broken she was and devastated, and he didn't know what to do. And so he writes this song called Fix You. Now, what's interesting is Chris Martin grew up in a deeply committed Christian home where his mom and dad loved the Lord, and he was around the things of God and in the church, and he eventually walked away from that. But he always had in his head, in his mind, that we are broken. We're broken. We're what Paul talks about here in Corinthians, right? That we live in a world that is a pressure cooker where we can feel crushed and perplexed and persecuted and discouraged. And so he writes this song for Gwyneth. Let me read some of the words to you. When you try your best but you don't succeed, when you get what you want but not what you need, when you feel so tired but you can't sleep, stuck in reverse. Sounds like Corinthians, doesn't it? And the tears come streaming down your face when you lose something you can't replace, when you love someone but it goes to waste. Could it be worse? Lights will guide you home and ignite your bones, and I will try to fix you. And that's what Chris Martin writes. Gwyneth, I know you're hurting and you're crushed, you're broke. I'm going to try and fix you. Well, that's very altruistic. That's very noble. Apparently he didn't do it because they're not even married anymore. Now, if you ever watch the music video for that song, Chris Martin, the singer and the writer of that song, in the music video, he's running around through a neighborhood in London, England. And that neighborhood is called Charing Cross. And he runs through this neighborhood, and at the end of the music video, he runs into a stadium, and the song swells up, and then the song finishes. Charing Cross is to many people, if you've ever spent time in London, I've been there a number of times, but if you've ever spent time in London, Charing Cross is where 5 roads intersect. If you take one road, it leads you down to Buckingham Palace. You take another road, you go down alongside the Thames River. And it's an orientation place in London, and it's called the Cross. They just call it the Cross. And lots of people will say, how do I get someplace? And they go, well, if you're at the Cross, and that's a very common expression. A while ago, I heard a very interesting story. I thought, man, that is very, very interesting. It was a story of a policeman, a Bobby, in London, on his footbeat, walking in the neighborhood of Charing Cross. And he looks down on the sidewalk, and coming towards him is a little tyke, a little guy about 3 years old, and he's walking along, and he's looking around, and tears are streaming down his face. And he's lost something he can't replace, his mom. And he's scared. And this Bobby walks up to him and he says, "Hi, are you okay?" And he says, "No, I'm not. I'm lost." He says, "What's your name, young man?" "Thomas." He said, "Okay. What's your last name, Thomas?" "I don't know. I'm lost." He says, "You don't know your last name?" "No." "Do you know your phone number?" "No." Bobby looked at him. But his parents had invested in him. And they had given him a geographical orientation in case he ever got lost. And finally, little Thomas looks up at that policeman. He said, "Mister, if you take me to the cross, I can find my way home." You hear that? Whether you're 18 today or 88, when life begins to crush in upon you, and you lose something you can't replace, and you love someone and it seems to go to waste, go back to the cross. Because at the cross we realize again that we were purchased by the priceless blood of God's one and only Son. At the cross we see that our sin is greater than we could ever imagine, and God's love is more immense than we ever believed. At the cross we know that God bought us with his Son's blood, and because of that he will protect us, and he will sustain us, and he has us in his sights and in his thoughts, and at the cross we know that he will get us home. Amen? Amen. And if you've never met this man, Jesus, and been to his cross, I can tell you assuredly, he is the only thing that can fix you. And he will. When I survey the wondrous cross on which the Prince of Glory died, my richest gain I count but loss, and pour contempt on all my pride. See from his head, his hands, and his feet, sorrow and love flow mingled down. Did ever such love and sorrow meet? Or thorns compose so rich a crown? Were the whole realm of nature mine, that were an offering far too small? Listen, church, love so amazing, so divine, demands my soul, my life, and my all.